Welcome to Alexa on Deck. I'm Samantha,
And I'm Francis.
and we're really excited for you to be here with us today. We are going to talk about rewiring your thoughts. And we were talking about it a little bit beforehand, Francis. So tell me about something that you do with your girls when you're coaching.
I'm glad that I remember everything that I was going to say because I've already said it. But we got into a little bit of a discussion about what we really want to focus on for our programs and things that will help you develop as a player throughout this process of being recruited, and then what it'll look like kind of down the road and how that helps you understand, I don't know, like these life skills, I guess is the best way to put it. But something that I found really interesting is, as a coach, I started asking girls to tell me like 3 things that they learned during our lesson, or 3 things that they want to focus on moving forward. And it's really interesting because even with families who have the most support and like the most enthusiasm from parents, legitimately parents are sitting there or like clapping the entire lesson, like cheering the kids on. At the end of the lesson, those same kids are saying, well, I'm going to stop doing this, or I'm going to avoid doing XYZ. And it's just so interesting because it just shows how quickly your brain wants to work to the negative, and that it has to be a conscious effort to view things in a positive light. But once you start, it flows so much easier.
It's so smooth. It
Yes.
is, honestly, though. When you were telling me that earlier, all that I could think about was like reflecting on back to how I used to play and things that used to come into my mind. And I remember thinking that, I remember the aha moment for me when I was thinking about it was trying to tell myself I can't do something. And I'm convinced that the mind doesn't hear the word can't. It just hears that that's what it wants you to do because you're focusing on it. You're like providing energy to that. That's what you're thinking about. There's energy going towards it. That's what you're, manifesting, or that's what you're really bringing forward towards you.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it would be really interesting. There's a study that I have here for us to talk about. So this is about failure and whether or not something is actually failure or not. It's all about your perception of it. So there was a study done where a researcher wanted to better understand how to look at failure. She started with children. So she gave them questions that were simple, and then they got increasingly more difficult where they weren't able to complete them. And what she found was pretty shocking. The children were presented with these challenges that were way beyond their ability to complete. And they said things like, oh, I love learning and I love a good challenge. They didn't see these
Lack
situations
of
as
inability.
failures. Pardon?
Any lack of inability.
Yeah. They just thought that they were opportunities that they were going to teach them a lesson. And it was something that they could learn from and grow from. And I think that that is amazing to think of things like that because as we get older, we become less in tune with like ourselves, and we really kind of outsource a lot, like, oh, my parents know more. Um, Teachers know what's best for me. My friends is a big one, right? And I think if we go back to really looking at like what is failure at the end of the day, like it has such a negative connotation to it, but it's really just us learning. And
Mm-hmm.
if we do want to get better in life, we have to be able to grow and adapt to things. And fortunately or unfortunately, the reality is that failure is going to come with those things, but it makes us grow. I don't get what you're laughing at.
I'm laughing because while I was at St. Leo, there was a couple of pitchers that I would work with, and I loved them dearly, but they would get so frustrated if they threw a pitch and it didn't do what they wanted it to do. And it was hard to watch because they let it defeat them.
Mhm.
And so I started having to take an approach with them where they weren't allowed to tell me anything wrong with the pitch. Like if they were trying to throw a curveball and it went straight like a fastball, I wouldn't even let them address that. I got to a point where I was like, okay, what did you learn from it though? Like you can be dissatisfied with the result of something, but it doesn't mean that it was necessarily wrong. It just means that there's something that you want to make an adjustment on. And
Mhm.
I don't know, I approach it with my lessons like the day you wake up and you think to yourself, oh, I haven't stubbed my toe in a really long time, is the day you stub your toe because you've put that out into the universe.
Yeah.
So when they approach things like, oh, I'm just doing it wrong, it's it makes me want to shake them a little and be like, hey, kiddo, you actually haven't done anything wrong. You're still learning something. Like,
Yeah.
it takes something so long, like the process of how long they're going to be playing softball, and narrow it down so much and say, like, oh, I failed at it. It's just so sad because it's like, oh my God, there's so much more left. And it's almost frustrating to me because I think to myself now, I'm a way better player now than I was when I was actually playing because I understand these things on a greater level. And the way that I talk to myself is way better. But I didn't get that opportunity as a player. Like that's something that I've had to grow into. But that's still going to be changing over the course of coaching. Like it doesn't just end. Like, and it wouldn't even end with softball. It's something so silly. I don't let myself call, like in my head, I don't let myself call myself stupid
Yeah, 100%.
because I'm like, I wouldn't say that to you. So why would I do that to myself? And
Yeah.
like, I don't let myself get aggressive about when I've done something wrong. I'm just like, "Ah, that was silly. I'll try again." Because it does lead down the road of becoming so aggressive towards failure. And um sorry, I got distracted by how blue your eyes look in the sunlight right now. But it's we're never gonna be able to get through things like this, are we? People are gonna have to love our dynamic. But, it's so disheartening seeing kids flip their mindset so quickly towards failure and not let themselves appreciate the growth that they've had. And I think
Mhm.
that I still struggle with that, but as a coach, it's easier to point out than when it's happening to you or for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because there's so much pressure that's put on, kids. And like I think back to when I played, pressure's only what you put on yourself. It doesn't matter like, you know, if you're in the batter's box and bases loaded, full count, you're down by your home team and you're down by 2 runs, the pressure's on, but who puts that pressure on you?
I
It's
mean, the
all
pressure is going to put you
internal.
in that situation too. Like,
Yeah.
it's not just on one person.
No, but the pressure's it's all internal. It's
Mhm.
all an internal pressure. There's nobody physically like pushing you down, Like it's
One one day
there's
dad's gonna listen to this and he's gonna be like, I told you guys that when you were here.
probably, yeah. You'll have to get this far into it though. But I mean, the reality is that there's all of it's really hard to learn and play loose and feel like you're not failing, right? Because it's switching that mindset into that you're learning, you're growing. It's a different mindset. And to be able to do that, you have to be able to play freely and play relaxed and loose.
Mhm.
And if your standards of what you want out of yourself are so high, where they're difficult to obtain, yeah, then I mean, you're not helping yourself out at all. I mean, obviously everybody wants to, strike everybody out or, make all of these amazing plays and stuff like that. But the reality is that if you're not taking the times where you don't succeed and you don't get the outcome that you want and looking at it as a chance to improve and become 1% better, then, or, getting down on yourself and being embarrassed, it's fine to have like normal reactions about it and be frustrated, but it has to turn into a learning experience. And when you do, it's changing your brain. Your brain is the organ of happiness, and it can totally rewire the way that it works.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting to me because like the way that I view that is almost like a scientist, and I've started telling my little lessons this because it resonates better with them. But
you say it like the scientist, Dr. Nefario on
on Despicable Me. I mean, if that's the voice you want to have in your head, then go for it. But a good scientist tests their theory. So I've started saying to, especially with girls for hitting, like if your theory is that you need to start your swing when the ball comes out of the pitcher's hand, like if you're dead set on that's what your timing is, a good scientist tests that theory. So they'll test letting the ball travel a little further before they start their swing and say, okay, what are the results of this? Is it better than what I thought my theory was? And that resonates with them because, I mean, that's pretty much the only thing I heard in like science class growing up was like a good scientist tests their theory, what's your experiment? But it's funny because
you learned way more than I did in science.
But it's funny because they start giggling when I tell them that, and then they're like, oh, okay. And like the game isn't black and white, life isn't black and white. So like if you can go up there and say, okay, this is what I'm going to test this time, then there's no wrong result. Like it might not be the result that you're looking for, but now you know what you want to make an adjustment on the next one. And it just, I don't know, it just makes me giggle because these girls are so regimented with the way they approach things. And then at the end of the lesson, I'm asking them, tell me 3 things that we talked about today that you want to keep focusing on. And then they go, well, I don't want to do this with my top hand. I'm like, okay, so you're telling your brain what you don't want to do. What do you want to do? What's the opposite of doing the wrong thing? And they're like, oh, doing the right thing. And I'm like, no, you're still not getting it. What's the adjustment that you want to make? And it's so, I don't know, it's fun for me seeing the growth with them because over time, slowly they start eliminating well, I don't want to do this. And they sit and pause and they legitimately think about what they want to do. And it's cool because then you start seeing that shift when they're in the box. Now they're more confident because they already know what they want to do. And then you start seeing the shift because now, they got a little feather in their cap and they're hitting better and they feel good about it. And it's no longer waiting for well, I'm hitting really great right now, but it's only a matter of time because that thought doesn't even pop into their head. It's like, yeah, I'm a great hitter. Like that's just, I work hard for it and I know what I want to do. And they don't get so bogged down by the at bat or the couple of at bats that don't go their way because they already know what they want to make the adjustment towards.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've hit our time.
We have, just like that. You didn't know what to say next, well.
No, I didn't. Well, for you listening, we have an amazing program that we're coming out with to help you learn all of these answers and way more. We have a ebook, we have a template that has all of the schools, over 1,600 schools, might I add, that have thoughtful and
diligently I don't want to say researched, but Googled on our part.
It's taken a long time. I started keeping track and it's over 60 hours. So a little bit a little bit of time just to make that.
So if
But
you
it
want to
has,
spare yourself having to spend 60 hours to find all of the schools available.
and the links, that what makes this unique is it has the link directly to the school's softball site, so there's no kind of messing around with it, trying to figure out that, because that does actually take a very long time to do. And then we have our first program, which I think I'm excited for all of them, but this one makes me excited because it's how to narrow down those 1,600 schools to find your top 15, which is huge. I mean, to be able to find out what is actually the best fit for you, that's no one's talking about that. Everybody's just talking about getting a softball scholarship.
Just email all the
And
schools. It'll take no time at all.
yeah, just finding the links to the schools is 60 hours. And then the last program, the second one that we have, is something that literally everyone can use because it's going to put a nice bow on it, where it's going to answer all your questions about school visits. And Francis, help me out here. What else do we have?
We're
So
going
that
to talk
one's
about
loaded
how to
with
utilize
information.
social media
Yeah.
and not fear it. How to really, I don't know, I don't want to say just utilize it, but how you can legitimately use it as a tool to your recruiting, and then also kind of the best practices on it as well.
Mm-hmm. So if you're interested, go follow us at Olexa On Deck. And we are planning to do these once a week. So we'll see if we can get some guests to come on. I think we should be able to get one or two. And we'll go from there.
You know, send us some requests if there's something recruiting wise that you want us to talk about. Just send us an email or a direct message and we will research it and, you know, hopefully give you some answers that you're looking for.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.